Football is a cruel game, isn't it? But I'm convinced that only Spurs can hurt you and test you like this. Just days ago, we were celebrating arguably the greatest away victory in the Premier League era for Spurs, a 4-0 thumping of the champions Manchester City on their own patch, the Etihad, a stadium that they hadn't lost at in over 50 games, and Spurs went there and made them look like nothing. And then yesterday, we find out that Guglielmo Vicario is set to miss a significant portion of the season with a fractured ankle. Why do Spurs do it to us? Welcome back to the Ben Bowman YouTube channel. I wish we were talking under different circumstances, but we've got to make this video. How do Spurs replace Guglielmo Vicario in this period? If you're new, make sure to subscribe. Please make sure to like the video as well and get involved in the comments and give your thoughts. Let's just talk about Guglielmo Vicario himself, the man, the character for a second. Playing on at the Etihad with a broken ankle for 60 minutes. I think we all knew he was a warrior anyway, right? And again, delivering a masterclass of a goalkeeping performance as well. Look, I've seen a lot of people criticising Spurs' medical team for this, allowing him to play on. They obviously didn't know he had a broken ankle. And so many people that have had broken wrists, broken arms, potentially maybe, or broken ankles will tell you that you don't know it's broken straight away. You play on through the adrenaline. You think it's maybe a sprain or something quite minor. And again, Spurs, apparently, the medical staff, people within the club were very surprised at the severity of the injury. But these things happen. Look, absolute warrior, and we're going to miss him massively. So how do Spurs cope? Look, it's incredibly cruel that just days ago, we were breaking down how Spurs broke Manchester City, and now Guglielmo Vicario has basically broken his ankle. But this is who Spurs are, and this is what Spurs do to us. Make sure to go and watch that video if you haven't already. Really enjoyed that tactical breakdown of, obviously, that game. But it's kind of been tinted with, despair now after what's happened to Vicario. So what are Spurs going to do? We're going to kind of talk about the options that Spurs have got. But Dan Kilpatrick from the Standard says that Spurs have not officially put a timeline on Guglielmo Vicario's return, but the expectation is that his return will come after the January transfer window is closed. So we could be looking at February, we could be looking at March potentially, which could lead to Tottenham accelerating their plans to sign a new goalkeeper to compete with Vicario. And now this is the key for me, right? If Spurs go into the market in January, I think they have to make a competitive goalkeeper signing, someone that will push Vicario. I think Vicario is clearly the number one. But we can't be in a situation where we've got to rely on someone like Fraser Forster. The disparity and the drop-off in quality from Spurs' main goalkeeper, Vicario, to our second-choice goalkeeper is probably one of the biggest jumps in the league. And look, I really like Fraser Forster, and I really hope he does us a solid during this period. And look, you think back to the Galatasaray game, the most recent game that he played for us. He made some great saves in that one, but there were a lot of red flags as well, especially when you think about how Spurs want to play in terms of building out from the back. So I do think that this is exactly how Spurs have got to go about it. I think there were rumours back in November. Alistair Gold said that Tottenham are more than likely to sign a new goalkeeper in the summer to provide competition/backup for Guglielmo Vicario. They could even end up making a move in January if the right opportunity was to present itself. And the right moment has presented itself right now, right? This is a nightmare situation for Tottenham, and I think we've got to act properly in this. You look at the free agent market for goalkeepers, as I was doing yesterday, and it's pretty bleak. It's pretty bleak. Keylor Navas, option, maybe. Lloris Karius, an option. I don't think this is an option for Spurs. I think they've got to go and make a signing in January, especially when you consider the fact that Spurs' other younger goalkeeping options, Brandon Austin and Alfie Whiteman, who are at the club, and obviously they were registered in the Europa League squad because of their homegrown club-trained nature, have never played a game for Spurs, a competitive game. Brandon Austin played in pre-season. And actually, if you think back to that QPR game, was pretty good in that game. And I think Spurs fans probably wanted to see a little bit more of him and maybe trust Brandon Austin to be that backup goalkeeper in the Europa League. Again, just like Alfie Whiteman, not played a competitive game for Spurs, even though he's obviously in the Europa League squad. And he's shown that he can be decent, confident with his feet as well. But do Spurs want to be relying on these players in this massive run of games? These aren't necessarily young players either. It's not like trusting the youth. So they have got experience of professional football, but they haven't played too many games, obviously. Brandon Austin's 25. Alfie Whiteman is 26. So it's not like chucking the kids in. They're experienced pros in their own right in a way with mature heads on their shoulders. But they haven't really got that match experience. Certainly not at Tottenham, which is obviously not ideal for now. When you look at his kind of all-time numbers, Alfie Whiteman, obviously he went on loan to the Swedish League, played 21 games in the 22 season, or in the year of 2022, played 13 games in the year of 2021. Brandon Austin has never been on loan, or he went on loan very early on in his Spurs career to Viborg, but this was a very long time ago. So they're not exactly match sharp or match fresh, certainly not in recent times. They've been at the club and not played football for a long time. You see Brandon Austin in his career path there, Orlando and Viborg, Alfie Whiteman, Degerfors, and that's it. Tottenham, that's it, where he's not played any real games other than under 23 games, under 18 games, etc., youth league games, and the same for Brandon Austin as well. 45 appearances for Spurs' under 21s, 83 goals conceded and 8 clean sheets. Do you go younger? Do you trust someone like a Josh Keeley? Do you recall Josh Keeley from his loan at Leyton Orient? Do you trust Luca Gunter, our under 21 goalkeeper? Is that something you do? Or do you go into the market and make more of an ambitious signing, which is something that I would be in favour for? Look, are Spurs going to do this? Caoimhin Kelleher would be my number one choice and my number one target for Spurs' backup goalkeeper spot. The big questions are, is he going to want to be a backup goalkeeper at Tottenham? Probably not. I think if Caoimhin Kelleher is going to make a move away from Liverpool, it will be for somewhere that he's going to be a guaranteed number one, right? He's 26 years old. He's a brilliant goalkeeper, arguably the best backup goalkeeper in the league, right? Him or probably Stefan Ortega. But I think Kelleher has done more than enough to prove that he is probably worthy of that number one backup goalkeeper spot, if that is even a thing, right? But if you look at his record so far this season for Liverpool, 2 Champions League games, 2 clean sheets. 6 Premier League games in the absence of Alisson, 2 clean sheets. Again, Liverpool, I think, have conceded 8 goals in the Premier League, which obviously they've got the best, most watertight defence in a league that has been incredibly bonkers and, open and competitive. But could Spurs test Liverpool's resolve with potentially a loan offer, which I don't think they'd accept, and I don't think Spurs would do, because if there is a chance that Guglielmo Vicario is going to be back in February, March, they're not going to want to loan someone. And the fact is that if he is, and this is what I'm worried about, if Guglielmo Vicario is back in February, again, they haven't put a timeline on his return, are Spurs going to go into the market at all? If they think they can kind of ride it out with Fraser Forster until Feb, which is something that I don't necessarily want to happen, obviously. Guglielmo Vicario is such a big miss for us, if you think about how comfortably he is playing out from the back. And I tweeted this last night. There are people that don't think Guglielmo Vicario is comfortable and confident with his feet. But I'll tell you now, you're going to realise how good he is with his feet when he's not in the team. And Spurs might have to play a little bit more differently. Might bring Solanke into the game a little bit more from our build-up, go a bit more long and a bit more direct to him. Fraser Forster is probably going to treat that ball more like a hot potato than someone like Guglielmo Vicario is. And I don't mean to patronise Fraser Forster. Look, he's had an incredible goalkeeping career. You think back to the Messi quotes, saying that is the best goalkeeping performance I've ever played against when he was at Celtic. But this is a long, long time ago. And I don't necessarily doubt his ability as a shot stopper. I doubt his ability with his feet and to command his area. But yeah, where there isn't a timeline necessarily on his return, a lot of this is obviously guesswork. But my worry is that if they feel that he is going to be back in February, they might not do anything. And I think a lot of Spurs fans are probably worried that Spurs are going to do that. But again, like I said, there have been kind of rumours today that it's obviously going to happen. There's obviously going to be paper talk about Spurs going in for a goalkeeper. I imagine there will be strong, concrete rumours about Caoimhin Kelleher in the next few days. I don't necessarily mean that they are accurate. I mean that they are strong in the sense that it's a very easy link and the media will kind of jump on that because Spurs need a goalkeeper. He's been linked with Chelsea as well, I believe. Some Chelsea fans deem him not to be good enough for them, which I find crazy. I think Caoimhin Kelleher is a very good goalkeeper, a very good shot stopper that is comfortable with his feet and I genuinely think could provide really competitive backup for Guglielmo Vicario, which is something we don't have, and potentially push him for that number one spot as well. Look, I love Vic and I want him to be our number one, but you look at what potentially Arsenal did with Raya and Ramsdale. I know that kind of materialised in the way that Raya obviously pushed him out, but what they did do is went and signed a competitive backup initially, and what transpired was that Raya was exactly what Arteta wanted and Ramsdale was phased out. I don't want that to happen to Guglielmo Vicario, but at the same time I want what's best for the team, and if Kelleher comes in and shows that he's maybe better than him, then you've got to do what's best, and then you've got 2 really good goalkeeper options. But Vic is going to be a massive, massive miss. I just want Spurs to act seriously and properly about it. Do you go in for someone like I don't know, maybe I'm thinking of the goalkeeper at Leicester, Hermansen. Is it Hermansen? I'm kind of making this video on the fly, by the way, guys. You've got, Mads Hermansen, 24-year-old goalkeeper, has been really, really good for them this season. Really good shot stopper. 24. I don't think he is going to be as worried about coming to Spurs as a backup than someone like a Kelleher, who probably will want to progress his career and accelerate it away from Liverpool if that opportunity arises where he knows he's going to be number one. Obviously, he's only kept one clean sheet, but look at what's in front of him. I think about standout performances against Arsenal that he had earlier in the season. I think some Arsenal fans were kind of comparing it to what we went through with Tim Krul in that game, remember? But he actually kept a clean sheet. In this game, Hermansen let in 4 goals, but some of the saves that he made were absolutely incredible. Is that something Spurs potentially do? I saw someone mention Jason Steele, who obviously at Brighton isn't getting the games because they've got Verbruggen. But Jason Steele knows how to play with his feet. This would worry me a little bit. I'm not massively sold on this idea, to be honest. But for me, Spurs have got to act seriously about this and go in for Quigg and Kelleher. I think this might be a pie in the sky situation and a scenario that I don't think many Spurs fans expect to happen necessarily. But I just think it would be not strange, but it would put a lot of pressure on Brandon Austin or Alfie Whiteman, considering they've never played a game for Spurs, if you were to kind of chuck them in and give them an opportunity. But arguably, there is no better opportunity to do that in. And they have played games for Spurs in pre-season. And like I said, they're not kids, you know. They haven't had much loan experience away from Tottenham. But they train every day. They understand what the system asks of them. They're both probably better on the ball than Fraser Forster, although the evidence isn't there to suggest that because, again, like I said, they haven't played. But it's such a nightmare situation and a depressing video to make this. And I would love to know your guys' thoughts on this. Look, this is kind of an off the kind of cuff, on the fly sort of video. So thanks for watching, and we will do a more in-depth look at what Spurs could potentially do. But I think the reality is that if they think that Vicario is going to be back in February or March, or February maybe, optimistically, or maybe even the end of January, who knows, I don't think they're going to act seriously in the way that we want them to, even though a backup goalkeeper was obviously on the radar for next summer. Kelleher would be my number one choice, like I said. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments below, and hopefully we'll have a more positive conversation after Roma on Thursday, because, you know, there isn't a dopamine hit quite like a Spurs win. I've watched the highlights back of the City game several times, and it kind of made me almost forget about this for a second. So go and do that. That's what I suggest you do. Go and watch the highlights back of the City game at the weekend, and maybe you'll forget about this for a second. But again, Guglielmo Vicario, absolute hero. We're going to miss him massively. But let me know your thoughts. Again, kind of just a spitball off the cuff, mind brain dump video, because I felt like I needed to talk about it. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to go and follow the TikTok. Try to get to 50k before the end of the year. Some exciting stuff coming as well, which I can't really talk about too much right now. But yeah, up the Spurs. Try not to be too upset about this, like me. Gonna miss you, Vic. All the best.